Hello and welcome to The Big Fight. The Prime Minister has called it the most serious internal security challenge this country faces. The Home Minister also has been talking repeatedly about the Naxalite threat, but for some reason, the Naxalite challenge has never got the newspaper headlines and the TV hours that it really deserves. Let's try and find out what the reason for that is. Let's try and figure out what we can do to deal with the Naxalite problem. Is it purely an armed solution? Are there other aspects to the solution? That's what we're going to be debating today on The Big Fight. Let me start by welcoming our guest. I'm going to start off in Hyderabad by welcoming onto the program Mr. Varavara Rao. Mr. Varavara, would it be fair to call you as one of the chief ideologues of the Maoist and Naxalite movement in India?
No. I am a revolutionary writer, inspired by the Naxalbari and Srikakulam movements and organized the Revolutionary Writers Association. That's why I support the Marxist-Leninist ideology than being an ideologue for a particular party.
A writer and somebody, who has been influenced and has helped influence the Maoists and the Naxalite cause. Also joining us from Hyderabad, Mr. Madhu Gaur, who's a Congress MP from Nizamabad. You, of course, are someone right there and who deals with this problem almost on a day-to-day basis. So, Mr. Gaur, it's great that you could join us. Mr. Sandeep Pandey is also joining us from Lucknow, who's a Magsaysay Award winner and somebody who has written and spoken out a lot about some of the problems that do lead to left-wing extremism in various parts of the country. Here in the studio, gives me great pleasure to welcome Ravi Shankar Prasad, who is, of course, we don't need to introduce you anymore, Ravi, except to say that you are somebody who believes there should be a very strong and determined response to Naxalites. It's great to have you with us. Mr. Bernard de Mello, Deputy Editor of the Economic and Political Weekly, has also been following hard left. The hard left movement in this country for a long time and has strong views on that. Prasenjit Bose is, well, a communist of a slightly different hue, if I can say that, Prasenjit. You belong to the CPIM, you had the research unit of that, and you think the Naxalites are going about it all wrong. In fact, in many ways, the CPM was one of the first targets of the Naxalite movement in India. And finally, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mr. Ved Marwa, who was, of course, in various capacities has been dealing with the Naxalite problem. Police commissioner, you looked at national security, and you were governor of Jharkhand also. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us. Mr. Varavara Rao, why don't I start with you? We call it the Naxalite menace. We call it the biggest threat to internal security. We also say that the Naxalites, who once had an ideology that many people would at least be sympathetic to, have now become almost like just terrorists. How would you react to all of that?
Certainly, it is a menace for those who wanted to support the imperialist globalization in this country, and particularly the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, who are day in and day out are calling it as a menace, because they wanted to serve the World Bank program. They wanted to serve the imperialist globalization program in this country, and in fact, while alleging that the Naxalites are making a red corridor from, say, Kathmandu to Kanyakumari, on the other hand, they wanted to give away the whole forest wealth and forest land of this country to the multinational companies and big companies. And that's why, for them, certainly it is a menace. But whereas the Naxalite movement has become a broader, a bigger ideology for those who are patriotic, for those who are with the nationality movements, for those who are the Democrats, and for those who want to preserve this people's sovereignty in this country.
Okay, so let me just get a reaction to some of what you've said, and we'll come back to you, of course, to continue to get your views. Madhu Gaur, when you see what the Naxalites are doing in parts of Nizamabad, where you're the MP from, in Chhattisgarh, in Jharkhand, do you agree with what Mr. Varavara Rao just said, that essentially it's just a different model of how this country should progress and a different model of development? Is that the way you would see it?
What I've seen for the past 5 years as a member of parliament, it's a systematic failure by the parties, by the government, by the officials, not providing basic amenities to those tribal areas or most backward areas.
Tuba.com